Namaskar. In today's episode of Right Angle, I like to share my thoughts with you people on just concluded visit of Prime Minister Modi to Ukraine. As you all know that this visit of our Prime Minister to Ukraine was the first of any kind by any Indian Prime Minister since Ukraine became an independent country in the year 1991. And you all know what is happening in Ukraine for the last 2 years. I think February 2022 it started. There's a war between Ukraine and Russia, and actually it happened because Russia, quote unquote, invaded Ukraine, and since then the war is on. Many people have died. The global economy has suffered a lot. That perhaps you all know. So, but we are not going into it. The very point that one would like to explain is this: that Modi's visit to Ukraine is being described in many circles that he is trying to, or he is not really playing this role of a peace broker between Russia on the one hand and Ukraine on the other, because unlike many other global leaders, or for that matter, unlike many other countries, India perhaps is the best placed to have friendship with both the parties to the war, that means Russia and Ukraine. Of course, one can say that Ukraine's leader, Zelensky, was very upset when Modi visited Moscow last month. But that was to revive that annual summit between the Russian leader and the Indian leader, head of the state, head of the government. That was broken. That cycle was broken over the last 2-3 years. It was a revival of that. But even otherwise, as you know, that we have taken a very consistent stand that wars cannot achieve anything, and whatever your national interests are, that has to be sorted out or that has to be pursued through peaceful means, through diplomacy and the negotiating table. So unlike many, we very rightly have not taken any side, and this is what we call our strategic autonomy in our foreign policy. So we have not condemned Russia. We have not very openly supported Ukraine, but we have condemned the war. We have always argued for peace. We always have said that the principles of territorial integrity of sovereign nations must be respected as by everybody, and things should be carried out under as justified or as permitted under the international law. So of course, many people are dissatisfied, particularly the Western countries, America in particular, and they were unhappy. They wanted India to take a forthright stand They never appreciated India maintaining good relations with Russia and Putin. But the point is, just because we have taken a very consistent and very principled stand, and unlike many countries, we are in a position to talk to both. Like as I said, Modi went to Russia last time, has got excellent equations with Putin, and but then though having that excellent relations, he has never hesitated to very forcefully express his or India's views that wars are no solution. There has to be peaceful pursuit of every country's national interest. So we have been against the war. There no two opinion on that. But the very fact that he, as I said, has got excellent equations with Putin on the one hand, and then we have he has always maintained this channel of communication open with Zelensky, in the sense that in the last two G7 meets, I think last year it was in Tokyo, this time it was in Italy. He did talk, and they have always, Modi has always consistently argued this India's line. So the point that I am trying to make is that the very fact that we have got channels of communication open with both the parties, we perhaps are in a much better position that many other countries to play the role of a peace broker. So if Modi tried to play that role of a peace broker, I think that is something I will be discussing in more detail little later. So in India, in many circles, I hear that Modi is trying to get the peace prize, the Nobel Peace Prize. But I think I certainly will go for the reality check. I will be very proud, as any Indian will be, if Modi eventually gets the Nobel Peace Prize. But as a strategic analyst over the years, I know what the things are. The thing is this: Nobel Prize, particularly the prizes on this disciplines like say economics, or for that matter literature, and for that matter peace, it has been seen the talent has never been that means the quality and the talent and the real work has never been the criterion for winning these prizes alone. What has happened is this: I do not want to divert from the main topic, except saying this. In my humble view, Nobel prizes are determined by a group over the years who are essentially left, so-called left Democrats, and now the Islamists have also joined that rank. As in one of my previous episodes I had said, we are now seeing a broad global level ideological war between two sides. One side is this so-called left liberal and Islamists. Islamists have joined that rank. It was not the case before. And on the one side, nationalists, they call the right-wingers or rightists on the other side. And it is happening all over. With the result is that many countries are deeply polarized, whether it is US, whether many countries in Western Europe like Britain, France, and America, of course, and of course, we can say the same thing happening in India. So the very fact that as long as these prizes are determined and controlled by this left liberal and now the Islamist lobby, Modi getting the peace prize, I think it, according to me, will be a miracle. Because these are the very elements who again one of the previous episodes I had explained, had tried their best to see Modi and the BJP, defeated in the last general elections that we had. So let's not talk of peace prize. Let's concentrate our thing with this. India playing the role of a peace maker. And actually, if you see that we had a history, and I think I'm not going to use the term that adjective glorious history, but we had a very proud history. Let me talk of let me use that particular word of mediating. Say way back in 1950s when this Korean War was on between North Korea and South Korea. As North Korea was supported by China, and Russia, and South Korea was the US, and the US did intervene through the United Nations. And as you know that war, technically speaking, has not been ended. Because what has happened is that in 1953 there was an armistice agreement that stopped the war, but the two halves are there. The negotiations, technically speaking, are on whether the country will be reunified or not, or the real peace agreement will follow. That is not the case so far. But the peace prevails. There is no war, and that war stopped. That's the armistice, and for bringing out that armistice agreement, India had play an important role, in the sense that in between 1951 and 53, we are the ones who are chosen to give that idea, and then eventually succeed in reaching an agreement on the exchange of the prisoners of war of both the sides, those prisoners of the North and China in South, and the prisoners of South and the allied forces in the North. So that exchange took place. India played a very, very, very important key role. In fact, India was the chairman of that commission, and all these things took place through the United Nations. And once that was agreed upon, it really facilitated for the eventual armistice agreement. So we always can say that we have got a proud history of bringing out peace instead of cessation of the war and bringing out the peace. And that being the case, we can repeat the same thing here in Ukraine. We can also talk of the prisoners of war, and that safety of the nuclear power stations, then economic permission, lifting of these economic sanctions. That is creating problem for the whole world by both the parties. So things of that sort, and then once the war comes to an end, then you can think of what the negotiated settlement will be. So in that sense, India can play the role of an important peacemaker, and if Modi really tried to do that, then I think one should be very happy about it. But the reports that one has seen, one has not exactly come across, except Prime Minister repeating the same thing, that we must not talk of peace. So the very fact that there have not been any concrete suggestions that were thrown out publicly, I do not know what must have happened, behind, and actually in diplomacy that thing happens. They say that is a very famous principle of diplomacy. Open agreements secretly arrived at, that process of arriving at, the process of talk, the process of negotiation must be secret, but the eventual result has to be made in open. I think that is what diplomacy um, is all about in most of the cases. And if something has happened behind the curtain that we do not know, that is understandable. But as such, publicly, I don't think any concrete suggestion was given by India, or for that matter, by Prime Minister Modi. The next question that now arises, when one talks of making peace, and the point here one should ask, are these two parties who are at war, that means Russia and Ukraine, are they really very serious about a peace deal? I think this is the mother of all questions that people are not debating and discussing. I think that was one of the primary reasons why I decided to come and share my thoughts with you. Really, are Russia, or for that matter in the Ukraine, sincere or really interested in having peace and ending this war? Here, let me again talk about some issues of these reality checks. Russia attacked. There are no two opinions on this. But then was Russia compelled to do this, as it didn't have any other alternative? Because it's a very complicated question, and it will require hours and hours of explanations. I am not go into them, but then very, very briefly, let me tell you this. The only particular point that Russia wanted, that Ukraine must not be made a member of NATO, because it is just on its border. It must not be made a member of NATO. But when the Berlin Wall had collapsed, the Cold War had been ended, the German unification took place. At that time, the then Soviet Union had exactly dissolved. It dissolved a few months later. But the then Soviet President Gorbachev, and then the American presidents this side, and the Western leaders, there was now the documents have been unclassified, and people really know it. And of course, that time even many people and scholars are written it. There was an understanding that NATO will not be expanding further. NATO, you mean the military alliance. Only thing Soviet Union then agreed that Germany, once reunified, will be allowed to become a member of NATO, because West Germany was, East Germany was not. But actually, whatever the promises that the West had made to Moscow those days, subsequently were broken one by one. The entire East Europe, many countries were made members of NATO, and then it has come to the situation of Ukraine being made a NATO member, which Putin very rightly opposed. It's like America allowing the China, or for that matter Moscow, to have a very strong military base in one in Mexico, or for that matter in Canada. What the Cuban missile crisis. Let's not go into that. Or rather, say we India will like a Chinese huge base in say Maldives or Sri Lanka or in Bangladesh. Will you not protest over it? So same is the case, but that didn't happen. And why? There are many circumstances that eventually led to the Russian invasion. And of course, the Western countries, they got unified. They took this thing. They solidly came behind this Ukraine, and then you know that the war has taken place. There 200 billions of worth economic military assistance have been provided to Ukraine. The war is not ending. Blah 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 blah. That is the and that is the problem. Because we do not anticipate or visualize a quick end to the war. This war, as I said, had something to do with the geopolitics. It had something to do with, you can say, the revival of the Cold War mentality, in the sense that, how to one particular side, the Western side, to humiliate and ensure that Russia becomes a third-rate country, as far as its eventual power is concerned. It must be hurt and things of that sort. It is something to do with the geopolitical, calculations. It has nothing to do with democracy. Let there be no illusion. This guy, this Zelensky, is a Democrat. Certainly not. You know that he has not conducted elections. His term is over, but he is there. He gives this peculiar clause that the war is on. The country cannot go for democratic elections. And you know that there are lots of stories, reports, proven facts of corruption. You know that this country is so corrupt that this was one of the reasons why before even the Russian invasion, Ukraine was not allowed to become a member of the European Union. Russia didn't have any such problem of Ukraine becoming a member of the EU. But then the point is, this reputation of this country is such. The Ukraine, one of the most corrupt countries of the world, and then this guy is not a quintessential Democrat. Forget about it. So this is not a war for preserving and protecting democracy. As I said, it is a geopolitical war between Russia on the one side and America-led West on the other side. So that being the case, it is very difficult to arrive at a peace, because here I just will take 2 minutes and then we'll conclude. You see, this war started, as I told you, in 2022, and that particular year there was a series of attempts made by some countries for ending the war and having a negotiated settlement between the two. And there are many rounds of such talks took place in Belarus, and then Turkey also had played an important role toward the end. I think sometime in November 2022, I think they came out with more or less a draft, and all these concrete proposals that were made, they were agreed upon more or less, because unless you come to the final round of talks, you know that there will be 19-20 to hoga hi hoga. There are some changes here and there and this. But then, broadly speaking, it was acceptable to Russia and Putin. And interestingly, it was more or less acceptable to that time to Ukrainian officials. Do you know 11th hour who really broke these talks as far as the results are concerned? Countries like Britain. I think Britain was played then Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister, and then by these Western countries, particularly countries like say US, Britain, France was not that that rigid those days, but in the last 1.5 years it has become the most rigid rather. Germany was 50-50. Germany is not even on the other, the rigidity of Germany for a making peace has been towards peace, and that Ukraine that war must end. I think that Germans have become much more reasonable now. unlike what was the situation in the beginning. So they stopped it. On the other hand, and what was those, you see what broadly, there are many proposals. I briefly will be saying, what was the main thing? Russia demanded that, no problem, as I said, that, Ukraine can be allowed to become a member of EU, but no question of NATO. But Ukraine's security will be guaranteed both by Russia and the Western countries. That means there is no problem to Ukraine, and I think its security would be much more secure than, say, even becoming a member of NATO. There are some things, of course, that Crimea. You see what was happening. This is something very interesting that you should know. This is Ukraine. What you see Ukraine today has got a very fractured history. Actually, there was no independent country called the Ukraine in the history as far as I can remember. Ukraine's various parts of this present day Ukraine's territories where first if I'm talking of the years, hundreds, years. Sometime it was under the Roman Empire, sometimes the Greeks took it, then some parts were under the control of the Ottoman Empire, and some parts under the Russian Empire. So it is a very fractured history in the sense that because that is the melting point of the East Europe and West Europe, in the sense that there is strong Russian influence, Russian speaking people are there. So in any case, what happened was, I think it was in 300 years in 1954, that means 1954 minus 300. 1654, the present day Ukraine, the way you see it, it became a part of Russia, right? The Russian, there was some war among Russia. They took control. As I said, it was never an independent country. It is like territories. Some parts of territories are under control of the Ottoman Empire, as I said, Roman and this thing. Some are. So the present day Ukraine that you see, that part became a part of full-fledged part of Russia way back, as I said, in 1954, 1654. And similarly, as you said, the Crimea, that particular peninsula, that important part, it was always under the Russian thing. So Stalin, he was when the USSR there, Stalin, to commemorate or celebrate the 300 year or anniversary of what they say, the Russians say, the reunion between Ukraine with Russia. They gave this thing which was Russian territory, that Crimea. They said that let's merge it with Ukraine. After all, it is like Punjab and Haryana, there are some territories, both are under, they are in our part. For some administrative convenience, suppose tomorrow somebody decides that this particular part of this thing can go to Haryana and that part can go to this thing. Like we have created many states out of the bigger ones. It is like this. So for my administrative convenience, Stalin said that look, it can go and be controlled and be a part of administratively speaking of Ukraine. Crimea till then was never a part of this thing. And here what is happening, 90% of the people in Crimea are the Russians. They are the Russian. It was the one country, as I said, there was never an independent country called Ukraine, which came into being in 1991. So always when these countries get divided, you have this problem, because of the your cultural thing, your linguistic thing, things of that sort. So it was always mixed. Maybe in certain parts the people, as I said, the 90% Russians were there, so they never would like that they would remain with Crimea. Sorry, in Ukraine. So Russia went and took it over in 2014. One can argue that the entire war started there in 2014, and the second round, which is now on, started in 2022. So similarly, there are certain portions of Ukraine, like this bordering Russia, like certain regions. What are they? These Russian names are very difficult to pronounce, like Donetsk, Luhansk, certain regions of Zaporizhia. These are again 80%, 90% Russians. So they were not very comfortable with Ukraine becoming a part of the country. But that time, when, as I said, that when these talks were going on after this 2022, Russia only had said that certain arrangements should be made for these Russian-dominated regions. As I said, these three particular huge regions. Ukraine is a huge country. In the Europe, after Russia, that is the second largest country. Such is its huge territory. But anyway, the point is that they said that these Russian-dominated regions of Ukraine should be, there should be some sort of autonomy for them. They didn't say that we want to take it back, or they will become independent. That is that even Putin was agreeable to all these things. But as I said, at the 11th hour, it is because of the insistence of the West. Ukrainians were forced to withdraw. And since that time, what has precisely happened? It is the West, particularly the Americans and the Brits and now the French, they said nothing doing. There will be no peace. Ukraine is definitely going to win this war. Let us talk about peace after ending this war. Of course, during the war, what has happened is that these three states or regions that I talked of, Russia captured them, and there are so-called referendum. They solidly voted for merging or joining Russia, which they have now become the Russian territory. So even now, I think last year, you must be knowing this Twitter's, owner, and the world's, arguably the richest man, Elon Musk, had, given a proposal. He provides the internet services, incidentally, Starlinks to the Ukraine, and all this war that you are, seeing is happening. If this internet services will be stopped by Musk, then I think Ukraine cannot fight this war. But then that has not been stopped. That's a different thing. But then he wants also this war to come to a halt. And he also had given a very sensible proposition, according to me. He said that let's be very, very realistic, end the war, give total guarantee to Ukraine for its security, like without it being a member of the NATO. And as I said, that was agreed upon more or less in 2022 in the beginning rounds of these peaceful talks. And these three regions which now have joined Russia through referendum must said that look, they should strictly now come under the control of the United Nations. United Nations will conduct a free and fair poll to know their viewpoints. Till then, everything has to wait. It will be not under Russian control, it will go there. But Crimea will remain a part of it. And then the war economic construction that has been ravaged up Ukraine, everybody will contribute. Russia has to contribute, and things of that sort. And he was saying that it is only for ending the war. As I said, that like the Korean War has ended, There is an armistice agreement, but there has not been any peace agreement so far since 1953, and now it is 2024. But there is no war. The tensions are there, but there is no war. War has been ended. Similarly, the most important priority today in Ukraine to stop this war, and that is and after this war is stopped, you can negotiate everybody with an open mind, without any what you say preconditions. Always one can talk, and I think perhaps I think it is in the fitness of the things. As I said, that of all the countries, Elon Musk is an individual, as a country, and India is perhaps in the best position to play this role of being a peacemaker. Peacemaker means halting the war immediately and then negotiating further ones. But as I said, no way this is being permitted or will be permitted by the West, particularly America, and particularly Biden administration. I don't know if Trump wins, what will be the situation. But then as long as Biden administration is there, and if the Democrats, Kamala Harris manages to win, and then the entire West, important Western countries, perhaps with the notable exception of Germany, and then all these East European countries who have recently joined NATO, like Poland now, of course, they do not want this peace. They do not want this war to end. They think that war must be taken to its logical conclusion with a victory for Ukraine. If this is the thing, then in my considered view, if really Modi wants to play the role of a peacemaker, more important for him than Zelensky to go and talk to Biden, because unless they are agreeing to stop this war, there cannot be any peace in Ukraine. Thank you for your patience listening to me. Namaskar.